was actually the last time that Bugs and I had spent any time with MP. We had a beer or two, and he was great, and had some good laughs. He didn't surf pretty much after he beat us in the legendary Stubbies, the first one in '77. Someone told him that there was a $5,000 check. There'd never been one. He says, I can win that. And he turned up, and he had legendary heats, the Cooley kids. I faced Rabbit in the quarterfinals. He killed me. Bugs and MP had one of the most legendary semi-finals in the history of pro surfing. MP got him. And then a young Mark Richards made it to the other side of the draw, and MR was just a kid. And he had that deadly MP stare as he was going out at Burley. And if you ever talk to MR, he says, I felt like I was beat before I got to the water. Michael gave me that look, and I knew it was on. So it is my great honor to introduce you to Mrs. Joan Watt Peterson.
Thank you, America, for inviting me here. Michael would simply say, did they really do that for me? I remember Michael's very first contest at the age of 10. He came home and he said, Mummy, I'm going in a surfing contest. I said, you don't have a board. He said, Phyllis O'Donnell's going to lend me hers. So off to Kingscliff they went. It was the Banana Festival. He came home and he came running in with a tiny little trophy and he said, look, Mummy, look what I won. I said, where did you go? Where did you come? He said, I come third. I said, don't you ever come home and tell me you come second or third, because nobody remembers your name. You must win. I first met Peter when he was a young lad. I knew his parents very well. They all grew up together, and Rabbit is a legend. I didn't think you'd get here today. I really do thank you all, Peter and your committee, for letting me be here. And when they told me, they invited me here, they all said, you're 80, you can't travel. I said, watch me. But I did get off the plane in a wheelchair. And I will say thank you all again for you. It's been a pleasure just to be here. And Qantas did give us a wonderful trip over. They fed us, they watered us, they fed us and watered us again with plenty of whiskey, and they did look after us. There are so many stories. I'm writing my walk and travel with Michael. So you'll have that coming in a year or two, I suppose. And I'm not supposed to say so, but I'll get into trouble, but there will be a movie. Can I say? Yes, of course I can say. I am reading the script at the moment. I'm not happy with it. I rang Sean Doherty and I said, every surfer on the planet knew Michael didn't swear. And every second line you got him swearing. Oh, he said, we'll fix that. But Sam Worthington is playing Michael. And guess who's playing me? An Australian, Jackie Weaver. Jackie Weaver. She'll make a good Joan, she will. But that's all I can tell you at the moment, but that will happen. I know it will happen, and Michael's up there still working on it. I still hear him at home. I hear him walking down the hallway, shaking his towel before he gets to the shower. And he had a special chair he sat in. It was a rocker recliner. And no one was allowed to sit in that chair. So when he's passed away, I decided, yes, I'm going to sit in your chair and watch the television. I felt him standing beside me, and he says, Mum, I have to say, get out of my chair. Anyhow, I love you all, and thank you very much for having me here. The hotel, the Hilton, has been wonderful to us. Nothing has gone wrong. I haven't really had any rest. No stopping, no nothing. I did drink a bottle of Maui on my own the other night. Thank you very much. Do you like my shirt?
Wow, what a way to start. I know Bugs and I both got a tear running down our eye because that's a big part of our history. Our next inductee is an inductee for surf culture, and possibly no one has had more effect on surf culture than the next inductee, the late Sean Collins. I would ask anybody out there, if you haven't checked into surfline.com, you're not alive. Because the famous saying that Sean came up with, know before you go. And today we all know before you go. His widow, Darren, is sitting right over here with the two boys. I'm going to invite AJ and Tyler up here. And Mum's going to come up too. That's fantastic. Make your way up here, guys. Yeah, Sean Collins has had a profound effect on all of us. And just like Michael at 59, left us way too soon. He of course, grew up in the Seal Beach area. The Surfline offices is right above us here. I'm sure he's up there smiling upon us, probably still sending the forecast down to the boys up in the building and telling them what's actually really going on because he just had a passion and lived every day to tell us where the good waves were. And with that, and since he started doing that, he has probably influenced so many aspects of our lives besides telling us when the waves are good, but many of the great photos you see today, many of the great surf movies you see today, they're all because of Sean Collins, because everyone calls him up to ask when the waves are coming. So why waste your film? You may as well know, right? And for that, we all owe Sean. And I don't know if Darren's going to say a few words, but I know Tyler is. I know they've been trying to put the mum up to it. But when we celebrated, there's a great photo in your program. If you look at, we had probably the biggest paddle out we've ever had at Huntington Beach. But there's one memory that I will never forget. It's AJ and Tyler standing on the board with their hands in the air to celebrate their dad. I don't think any of us will ever forget that photo. It was on the front page of the LA Times. And I think Tyler's going to do the speaking today. So congratulations, you guys.
Hello, everyone. Sean Collins, his life spoke more powerfully than I ever could, or anybody could, on behalf of him. He was an incredible man in so many ways. Incredible surfer, father, businessman, and equally impressive, he was an incredible friend, not only to us, but to pretty much anyone who had the good fortune of having him around. All the feedback we've gotten since his passing has been something to the effect of, your dad made my life better. And that's just who he was. I know every area that I've ever invited him into, every area of my life has gotten better. And that's just who he was. You know, he had a powerful character, an amazing amount of humility, and he loved surfing. And he chased waves. You know, he chased waves his whole life. He chased what he loved. That was his passion. And I think all of us surfers, scoring good waves is a special thing. And we even get a little selfish about it sometimes. We find a good spot, or we want to be out there when nobody else is and kind of score by ourselves. And I I know Sean got a lot of that in his younger years, and what's incredible is he dedicated his life to giving other people what he loved most. And to me, that's amazing. You know, I know he cherished surfing and getting good waves, and he followed his passion, and he dedicated his life to giving it to other people. And to me, that speaks pretty highly of him, and helps me a lot as a young man, I know. And I don't know, I'm incredibly grateful for him as a father and a friend, and what he's done for surfing is obviously incredible. And you know, honoring him here today is very, very much appreciated. I know he would be, he'd shy away from it. You know, any kind of fame or attention like that, he didn't want. You know, his walk was one of a man who knew how to live his life, and that's all. Thank you.
Next up, local hero. Wow, there doesn't come any more local hero than the next inductee. We still see him on Main Street every day, even riding his bicycle or the big motorhome. And I dare say many people out there in the audience walk through 121 Main Street up there, which used to be George's Surf Centre. When I first got here in the 70s, that had been there already for 10 years before I got here. And the first thing I was told when I was in town is you got to go to Jan's Health Food up at George's Surf Centre to have an avocado sandwich, which I did. It's still the best avocado sandwich in Huntington Beach. Jan's is still way up the other end, no longer at 121, but George Draper is the epitome of a local hero. Before there were Jacks, before there was Huntington Surf and Sport, there were George's. It was one of the only places, if not the only place, where you could go buy a bunch of brands of surfboards. We didn't have a lot of apparel in those days. What we had was a lot of surfboards. And he once said in the LA Times, my place was the supermarket of surfboards. And it's kind of cool because Dick Brewer is going to get on it later today, and he sold Brewer surfboards. He sold diapers, he sold G&S, he sold lots of surfboards. He said there were days in the Halican days of the 70s, right, George, where you'd sell 13 new boards a day. So, George, make your way up here, mate. I would gather also that if you went through 121, the door, if it wasn't to have an avocado sandwich, in those days it was to buy a board. And a lot of people through the years bought a board in George's Surf Centre. So it is my great honour to welcome George Draper to the Surfing Walk of Fame.
Well, anyway, here we are, all of us. Gosh, I started out in the surfing business with Clark Foam in 1963. I was blowing the blanks down there in the Laguna Canyon, and then we moved out to Crown Valley Parkway, where I used to deliver all the foam and blanks, and I worked for him for 4 years. I lost my driver's license because I was having too much fun with everybody. And there was another George. His name was George Panton, and he said, "George, why don't you come up to Huntington Beach with me, and we'll open up a store up here, and you can manage it for me." Well, that worked out real fine. Jesus. So anyway, George had a few other stores, and he was going down for the count because everybody was taking all the product and not paying for it. So he asked me, he said, George, you've been good to me. He said, I'll let you have this business, the business, mind you, not the building, for $1,000. So I said, thank you, George, very much. So I got the business, and I went on to run the business until 1993 when I retired. It's been a wonderful life. I love Huntington Beach, and God bless all of you. Thank you very much.
That brings us to another surf pioneer. There was a tie this year with Michael Peterson, another legend. It's kind of interesting that this class is kind of connected in many ways. The guy that I'm going to bring up next also has had a huge influence on many of us sitting out here today, especially the boards that we ride. We're going to have Michael Ho inducted a little while ago. He was a team rider. George Draper here sold Brewer Surfboards in 121 Main Street. David Neweaver and Brewer did the Bing Pipeliner, one of the most famous boards in history. But when I first got to Hawaii in '72, and you had to surf Sunset, people said you had to have a brewer. Couldn't surf Sunset without a brewer. And my mate and friend of the time was Jeff Hackman, and he had this one magic 8-foot brewer. He must have had it for, oh my God, when I got there, they already had it for 2 seasons. I think it had already won one of the contests at Sunset. And sometimes it was hard to get Dick to do boards because he was too busy surfing sometimes. And I've told Dick this story. So Hackman lived up on the hill, just down the street from a guy called Tom Parrish, who was just a young shaper, really hadn't gone anywhere yet. And we went, well, look, if we can't get Dick to shape, we've got to get some boards because we need to surf Sunset. So we took that one brewer down to Tom. And Tom probably should have given Dick royalties for that because he didn't get it right the first time, but eventually he did. And many of us out here ended up riding Parishes, and many of us were riding Brewers too. But that was the influence that Dick Brewer had. And one of the other things about those boards and the North Shore, which is somewhat different to today, in those early days of surfing in Hawaii and going in these early tournaments, you had to have the board. The board was 9'6" or bigger. And that board was there for when the day Fred Hemming said it's 30 foot of Waimea and you gotta go. Which really doesn't exist today because there's only one tournament that counts at Pipeline, and you don't run 9'6" at Pipeline. But I would tell you that most of the boards in the rafters that would sit in the rafters waiting for that call were Brewer guns. And I know a lot of them are still in the rafters for those days. There's still beautiful single fins sitting in the rafters waiting for those days. It's my great honor to bring up one of the greatest craftsmen of all time, Dick Brewer.